he's in a fascinating spot. We are 30 days until the deadline. He's been performing really well and very consistently. He's now another opportunity against a talented team, but one that's slumping a lot. What are your thoughts, Isaac, in terms of the likelihood of him being dealt at the deadline as we get closer and he continues to kind of separate himself from a lot of the other starters that are on the market?
He's continuing to put himself in a position to be one of the more sought after starting pitchers on the market. I have mixed feelings. Peter Bendix has been very vocal about how much he really likes this pitcher. Again, this has been one of the longest tenured Marlins players on the roster. He is one of the longest tenured players on the roster. So, I don't know how much of a relationship Bendix has with him, but I know that he likes him. However, if another team is really desperate for not only this year, Edward Cabrera, but for the next 3 years, which that team would have club control over him, I think Miami should be fielding some pretty generous offers for this right-handed pitcher. Who would have thought that going into this season, especially after getting hurt in spring training? It's gonna be. I think you see him getting dealt, especially considering how Sandy had another setback a little bit in his start. In his latest start, I think Edward Cabrera is going to be their crown jewel. So I would say it's more likely than not that Cabrera will be pitching for another team come deadline time.
Have another fancy junk outing coming up, but first, Carver, I know you wanted to add something on that.
Yeah, no, I think it's two questions. It's, when is the Marlins window to compete? Is it the next 3 years? I think it is. Yeah, personally. And is this it still is a question for me. And yes, he's been very good, but it is still a question, as it will be for this pitcher for, I think, at least a couple more starts, if not 3 or 4 more for me personally. Is it for real? Of course, any pitcher isn't going to be perfect all the time. Is he prone to going out and getting blown up and then returning to form? Yeah, that could happen too. But I think the jury's still out, Eli. I do. And you may agree with me. I think that we still need to see this persist. Even though he's been very good, he's been able to reinvent himself in certain ways, especially with pitch selection, as we've talked about earlier. He's really been able to kind of just reinvent the wheel when it comes to how he uses his pitches, how he's using more of the strike zone, how he's consistently more in the strike zone instead of purposely going out of it. The selection, like I just said, there are multiple things that this guy's doing differently that are working. So the questions are, is it for real? And what's the Marlins window to compete? Within the next 3 years, yes. Is this for real? Still got to see. But, I mean, right now, of course Bendix is going to say he loves this pitcher, because that could also be him talking him up to potential suitors. You're not going to say about a player that I hate that guy, you know what I mean? And then get a lesser return, or I don't really know about that guy and then get a lesser return. Of course you're going to talk him up. So as we talked about earlier as well, no one on this team is untouchable. Edward Cabrera is definitely not untouchable. It's just how he kind of fits into future plans. The Marlins do have several other pitchers that are going to come up and be very good in the minor leagues within those 3 years, I think. So there's questions here, but I think that the Marlins should field all offers for Edward. Will it still maybe be a little bit of a sell low in a lot of cases? I think it probably will be, because of past history with injury and consistency. So I would venture to say that he will probably still be around after this deadline, just because there's still not enough of a sample, unless he goes out and throws like a no-hitter or something. I still don't think there's enough of a sample of consistent play to warrant what the Marlins may want for a guy of this potential caliber. I will say he's still on the Marlins after the deadline, but we'll see.
Oh, that's fine. But I'm just saying, he has not given him more than 3 earned runs since April. And that was in Los Angeles against one of the best offenses in baseball. He has not walked more than 3. He has not walked more than 3 all season, actually.
But he also hasn't been able to go past the fifth,
right?
Right.
Right. So that brings you to the other point. I think other playoff hunting teams he would be more valuable to those teams, considering team starters don't really go deep in playoff games anyway. I think he's going to be extremely useful for a lot of playoff teams, considering how dominant this guy could be. Whether it's out of the pen,
it could be a sell high. He could revert again to the Edward of old, and then it could be a sell high, right? So it just depends how much the Marlins believe that this is for real. And I think it's a fair question to go both ways. I would say it's probably more if the Marlins believe this kind of play can persist, which he's showing that it may be able to. I think that they wait until if they're going to trade him, I think they wait until the offseason, but we'll see.
Yeah, it is. We don't even have time on the stream for me to go back and forth on all this. Of course, we have a full month now to go back and forth on this idea of trade value and how they compare with each other. It's hard for me to get past the lack of length that he provides. Now, some of it is of course, team driven and management driven. We've been very vocal about a couple occasions where he was pulled earlier than he needed to be, we felt. So even though there's so little precedent, I try to find it. It's so hard to find other trade candidates in the past like Eddie that bring back a significant amount in return if they're averaging less than 5 innings per start. That has just not been what the starting pitcher position is. If you were that guy in the past, it meant that you were a fringy major league starter, a number 5 guy, if not worse than that. So it's so hard to find comparables in history that have been moved at the deadline and have brought back a decent amount in return. And because of his effectiveness, like that would be the motive to move him, is if you think you're getting a significant amount. At the same time, as Isaac brought it up, once you get to the playoffs, we've seen it's almost universal across the league that guys do not work deep into games, even if they're having a lot of success. In part, that's because those teams have awesome bullpens. In part, it's because, it's the same concerns that the Marlins have during the regular season, but even magnified in terms of not trusting those starters as much as they trust their relievers. At the same time, with Cabrera, the injury history it speaks for itself. Even this year, he missed some time due to injury. We'll see how long. The thing is, I don't know. Would I trust him to go the next 3 months without another IL stint? It would be totally unprecedented in his career. It seems possible, but there's just no precedent for it, and that's such a big complication in here. It feels like his trade value is higher than it has been in recent years when the Marlins have had conversations with other teams about dealing him, but never quite got something that they liked. I think I've made my opinion demonstrate pretty clearly that I would get out of the Edward Cabrera business at most opportunities if you get something substantial in return. But it is hard to gauge because the cop out here is that he's barely making any money. It's what is it, like 2 million, less than 2 million this year. 1.95 this year, and then arbitration eligible the next few. They'll go up a little bit, but Sandy is 17.3 this year, 17.3 next year, an option for over 20 the year after that, where we think it's a reasonable value if he's healthy. But Eddie it's more surplus value with Cabrera because he's not even close to his free agent years yet. So that's part of it as well. Part of the value where it makes Cabrera a universal fit for any team that is looking for good pitching at this stage. So because of that more appeal, it's less risk, even if things go disastrously wrong. Because of that, I feel like his value would actually be a little bit higher. But you can go back and forth in terms of reasons why these guys might go, might not go. We're not going to talk too much about Sandy here because he's not pitching in this particular series. We'll catch up on that on the next stream. It's a fascinating spot that they're in with Eddie, and he's making it a tough decision by continuing to pitch well. So we're gonna have more coverage on the site about Eddie. I know our intern Sean McCormick is trying to make sense of all the changes he's made this year, because there have been actual real changes in his pitch usage and in where he's in his mechanics this year compared to previous years that are making a positive difference. And it's still, to me, it's fascinating that we could be reaching the end of the road because he's a homegrown guy. This is a Marlins team right now that has very few homegrown guys on their roster. Cabrera was signed and developed by them. He's been in this organization. Tomorrow, off the top of my head, tomorrow should be the 10th anniversary of Edward Cabrera signing as an international amateur free agent with his team back in 2015. So it would be we have not known life without him for a very long time if this is the end of the road with him.